Thank you all for coming. I am Gina Duvernay, the Adult Services Manager for Gwinnett County Public Library. And myself and my colleagues, Miriam Mayer and Amy Perry in the back, work really hard to bring dynamic authors to you, and we have one for you tonight. We're thrilled to have Dr. Daniel Black with us tonight, this evening, to talk about his latest book, Black on Black, On Our Resilience and Brilliance in America, which a review from NPR calls an important, relevant work of nonfiction that should be required reading in these troubled times. Daniel Black is an author and professor of African American Studies at Clark Atlanta University. His books include The Coming, Perfect Peace, and They Tell Me of a Home. He is the winner of the Distinguished Writer Award from the Middle Atlantic Writers Association and has been nominated for the Townsend Prize for Fiction, the Ernest J. Gaines Award, and the Georgia Author of the Year Award. He was raised in Blackwell, Arkansas, and lives in Atlanta, Georgia. Please welcome Daniel Black.
Thank you. I don't think I need to attempt that. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so appreciative to each of you for making the sacrifice to come out and spend a little time with me and with us in this important space about books. You know, we're in an era where people are getting rid of books and people are banning books. But some of us know that books save lives, amen. Right, and some of us know the importance of books. I want to thank some folks who came up here with me, right? I have really a son and daughter who are technically my niece and nephew who are here, and I'm tremendously happy about that. So Malcolm and Imani, y'all wave. These are my kiddos. They don't really read my books either, right? But they do love me, and so I appreciate that, right? And I have spiritual sons and daughters here, Zingisa and Obata, y'all wave, yep. And I have another spiritual daughter too, who's also a student of mine, a graduate student at Clark, a brilliant student, right, who came all the way up here that I'm so happy about. Malika, wave your hands, yep. So we're here to talk about this book, Black on Black. And I think what I'm going to do is read an excerpt from it first, and then talk about it. Has anybody had a chance to read Black on Black? Anybody? One, two, the couple of folks? My man Reggie's here, yes. That's my friend, my brother. How many of you have read Perfect Peace? Oh, a few of us have read Perfect Peace, yes. The Coming, anybody read The Coming? Yes. Don't Cry for Me. Oh, yes. So I appreciate that tremendously. I'm gonna read an excerpt from this book, and then we'll keep this moving. In high school, I read books and pieced quilts and baked cakes and wrote in diaries. I scratched grandma's scalp and danced around her living room like Alvin Ailey and Jean Anthony Ray. I learned to knit and crochet when other boys were coon hunting and chewing tobacco. I sang the lead in church choir and cried when Nettie and Celie reunited. I took French and home ec instead of shop and engineering. But I could have done engineering. Math came easily for me. It just didn't invite the sharing of my heart, so I abandoned it. I painted my nails once just to see what they looked like. Then, not knowing of fingernail polish removal, I soaked my hands in gasoline before my father got home. My brothers showed me hustler and Playboy pictures that didn't elicit my erection. I was a failure. No wet dreams, no masturbation, no jokes about boobs and ass. I was a weirdo, a freak, a nobody, a disappointment to a nation of men. But I insisted on living. I joined a church and met a God whom I didn't admire. People said he didn't like me either. In fact, they said he wasn't a man at all, but clearly he had preferred pronouns. When I called God she, preachers reprimanded me and said the Bible confirmed God's maleness, God's headship over humanity. Of course it did, I said, since men wrote the book and therefore named all the characters. Yet why couldn't God be a woman? What did we lose considering that possibility? My grandmother was far more godlike than my grandfather. People laughed at the innocence of my youth, but they didn't join my protest. After a while, they stared at me with disdain and rebuke. A few told me I should shut up and seek God's face. I did that, but I couldn't find it. Not back then. I was looking in the wrong eyes. So I just shut up, but I didn't stop looking. I soon learned that people wanted unenlightened black boys. They wanted unkind black boys, weed-smoking black boys, half-drunk, baby-producing black boys, girl-chasing black boys. People applauded black boys with faded cuts and cascading locks, not mounds of nappy hair resting atop an uneven head. They embraced boys with mediocre grades and unexceptional character. Boys who solicited cheerleaders, but never themselves cheered for anyone. Those were the boys who made mothers smile and fathers boast. Those were the boys girls gave themselves to, the boys other boys privately desired. These boys became preachers and pastors, civil rights leaders and college professors, news anchors and greasy mechanics. Black people in my day wanted black boys whose gifts they could commodify, boys whose talents might one day make them millions. At 25, I was a poor black writer, nothing to be proud of. Well, not yet. But something about language excited me. In words, I heard the timbre of the real God's voice, the frantic fluttering of angels' wings, and I knew that if I could gather words into my mouth, I could speak a new reality and change the world. I could mix subjects and objects and verbs and phrases and unspeak what the world had spoken about me. I knew that if I could master the word, I could reconstruct the heart I had grown to hate. So I read books and pamphlets and Reader's Digest and flyers and obituaries and church anniversary programs and automobile manuals and the parts of the Bible I liked and newspapers and coupons and grocery store receipts and junk mail and birth certificates and birthday party announcements. I read recipes and cereal boxes and encyclopedias and church hymnals and Sunday school primers and shopping advertisements and, of course, library books. With all that reading came questions no one could answer. Questions like, why would God put people in paradise simply to tempt them to ruin it? Or why couldn't humans eat from the tree of good and evil and be all-knowing? What was wrong with all-knowingness? Was God insecure? Or why did women take men's last names, although most men wouldn't take theirs? Or what personal pleasure did white crewmen get from throwing African bodies into the Atlantic Ocean? Isn't that rather sadistic and evidence of a soulless people? Or why didn't men wear dresses, especially in the summer? Hell, it was hot enough. Or why didn't men accompany each other to the bathroom like women? And just what do women do in the bathroom together? And why do men stand to pee? Isn't sitting far more comfortable? Every time I asked these questions, people said I was too smart for my own damn good, whatever that meant. Some accused me of thinking I was better than other folks. Actually, I thought I was worse. Since many desirable men sang, I tried that route as a way toward acceptance and celebration. Yet something went wrong. I think my range was too high. No bass resonance, no sign that the seed of a man was on the way. I sang a natural voice soprano so loud and strong that most turned away when I performed. My flailing arms probably didn't help, nor did my trembling vibrato, which I thought people liked. And they did, but just not in a boy. They wanted Barry White or Marvin Gaye or Luther. Those were not my idols, though. When I practiced in the barn, I sang along with Patty and Vanessa Bell and Shaka Khan and Natalie Cole. If I could hit their notes, and often I did, I felt triumphant. Still, none of this elicited praise for me. I couldn't figure it out. What did people want? I had straight A's every single class. No illegitimate children, no lifetime scars. Then I admitted what I already knew. They wanted a man, a masculine man. So I gave them one. I started smoking weed and hanging out in bars and alleys where masculinity was free for the taking. I started flirting with girls and having sex to prove my prowess. I started pimp walking like Denzel and holding my head like Idris Elba. I cut my hair down to a smooth fade and straightened the top naps with a nylon wave cap. Well, if those of you who are over 40 years old, you understand, it was not a wave cap back then. It was really a pantyhose. Come on, somebody. Y'all get it, okay. You know, you got to be a certain age to get that. You got to be a certain age to get that. I threw away those form-fitting jeans, the ones I liked so well, and began sagging along with all the other homeboys. My grandmother said I looked like a fool. My father said it was about time. I didn't like what I was becoming, but I was becoming. And that was the goal. In exchange for masculinity, I stopped reading books. I stopped analyzing movies. I stopped dancing before the full-length mirror. I stopped playing for the choir. I stopped scratching grandma's scalp. I stopped crying at others' abuse. I stopped caring about women's issues. Stopped cooking, especially baking. Stopped going to church. I stopped acting like a faggot. Boys were relieved. Daddy told his friends, I knew this day was coming. I know what the hell I raised. Mama fell on her knees and thanked God that prayer does, in fact, change things. But actually, prayer hadn't changed anything. I had no idea at 19 that I could love myself without other people's permission. I'd been made to believe that self-worth was what others thought about you, and I knew what others thought about me. I was talented but not adored, gifted but not glorified. Others shook their heads as if my being had been a waste of God's time. Every Sunday, someone prayed for me, either from the pews or standing boldly before me with hands high and lifted up. I felt guilty of some crime I had not committed. If God was willing to change me, though, I was willing to be changed. I needed a change. Something was wrong with me, everyone made me believe, but I was so, well, what my teacher called excellent. But can excellence be wrong? God never said a mumbling word to me about me. So after years of weeping and pleading, I let others pray for me without my participation. I just stood by obediently and waited. Funny thing, they stopped laying hands on me, and now I know why. As an adult, after earning a few degrees and finally meeting God, I mean the real God, I came to understand that I didn't need a closet. I didn't even want one. It's not for proud men and women who know who they are. It's for insecure people who enjoy acts without bearing the weight of the identity. The closet does not welcome sissified boys, even if they read, even if their grades are good, even if their character is excellent, even if they've never been in trouble, even over people. I learned quickly, very quickly, that nail polish, even clear, bans a man from masculinity. Makeup of any amount is a sure rejection. No sequins, no floral patterned pants, absolutely not. No arched eyebrows, no fake hair, no unnecessary weeping, unless your mama dies. No professional dancing, no love of cooking, you can grill. No standing with hands on hips. No large hoop earrings. No reading of romance novels. No reading, period, really. No screaming over movie stars. No admiration of Idris Elba. No dancing in church. No styling of hair. No tight pants. No love of women unless you're going to make love to them. No, 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 no. If you're going to be embraced by the people I knew, they would trade everything for masculinity. And I had everything except it. In some ways, I guess I was too free. Freedom in the land of bondage is a kind of bondage. I had rejected the achievement of masculinity, so no one had sympathy for me. No one. But I had thought that just being excellent would be enough. I was wrong. Boys who had straight A's like me and who didn't fight were called sissies. Boys who fought and boys who still liked boys were just called cool dudes. Their attraction to boys was irrelevant. Sissies were demeaned and degraded because they didn't or couldn't act like boys, whether they actually liked boys or not. A closet required masculinity. Even abstinence would be acceptable if accompanied by the performance of prowess. So there was no hope for me. Some men could get away with baking cookies if they did so for their own children, or they could weep freely if into the eyes of a woman. But me, I was too far gone. I bought flowers for myself and stared at their beauty. I wore beaded bracelets and matching necklaces. I had posters of Morris Chestnut, Nate Parker, and Layman Rucker on my walls, not for sexual reasons, but because they were beautiful black men, and I thought by admiring them, I was loving myself. Can't a man be beautiful even to himself? Hell no! People told me men can't be beautiful, period. Certainly not black men. We can deem each other aight, you know what I'm saying? You can be cool, you can be, you know what I'm saying, straight, you know what I mean? You can be acceptably attractive, but not downright beautiful. That word is reserved for people and things we seek to possess, things we seek to own, things we hope one day to devour. I learned this much too late. I decided and figured out that if Jesus were alive today, he'd get a closet. Yes, Jesus could be in the closet. Am I on film? Oh my God. Okay, well. Jesus had no wife, no girlfriend, no kids, and he wept freely, remember that? He also performed enough masculinity, however, to create doubt. Jesus wilded out in the temple, turning tables and shouting with vehement anger. That saved him. That certainly helped. Then he carried a heavy-ass cross up a hill. Now that was a man. That undoubtedly sealed his heteronormativity. In fact, if we're not careful, we celebrate Jesus precisely for the abuse he endured, and if bearing pain is the ultimate sign of divinity. It's strange that more people don't wonder aloud about Jesus' sexuality, especially since in his day, folks were practically forced to marry and procreate. Actually, by remaining unmarried, Jesus seems the only man in the whole of Nazareth to have done so. But okay. The point here is that his fame, his reputation rests upon his violent performance. It's the only way we can praise him, the only way we can exalt him as a single man who never had a woman. Turning water into wine didn't do it. Neither did raising the dead. These are not necessarily masculine achievements, but enduring that cross got him over. That's part of why black church folks love that moment more than Jesus' entire life, because his gender performance at Calvary is undeniable. We sing songs asking if you witnessed the violence. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, it causes me to tremble. They beat him all night long. Were you there? The act is so complete, so unsullied, so punkless that his compassion, shown in other moments, pales in comparison to his virility on the cross. In other words, Jesus gets unbridled manhood because he died hard, not like some weakling who crumbled because others mocked him. No, He bore our stripes and was whipped all night long. Then, much to everyone's surprise, he rolled that heavy-ass stone away, or somebody else did, and he got the hell out of that tomb. Baby, that was a bad dude. That was a pimped out mother. Although a sensitive one, too. Yes, there's at least ambiguity here. Yes, Jesus would at least get a closet. The real crime is what we do to brothers who don't. I think of James Baldwin and the world and the work he did to persuade a world to love more fiercely, and now I cry for him. Not because he couldn't have a closet, but because ultimately he loved us too much to want one. Scholars and readers alike celebrate Baldwin, but most don't champion his sexuality as a prerequisite for his brilliance. Most of us love James Baldwin because he was too brilliant to dismiss. We do not understand that James Baldwin's sexuality was the 3D lens through which he saw invisible analysis and insight. He didn't happen to be gay. God sent him gay in order that he would know what the margin looks like, in order that he would know what the margin feels like, in order that he would perfect a dance that had to be perfected because he was excommunicated from every community he tried to enter. Baldwin's brilliance resulted because no one wanted him. We don't say this, though, because we're not proud of it. We're proud that he was black and exceptional, even though he was gay. This means we've never seen him. This means we've missed him altogether, I'm afraid. Baldwin could have told us how to transform the church. He loved it so much. But the truth is we wouldn't hear him. Baldwin's wrist was a little too limp to carry authority. The truth is Baldwin was a prophet. Baldwin was a man who knew God, heard God, understood God, believed in God, and wouldn't leave God even at times when he thought he knew better. Baldwin wanted to transmute the church, to make it anew, to refurbish it into a place where anyone of any difference could sit upon the throne. But to the church, Baldwin was a sissy, which means he was dismissed as dramatic instead of understood as prophetic, even by black people. As popular as Baldwin is now, he has not made black readers less homophobic. In fact, the interesting thing about Baldwin is that everyone reads him, but no one prays for a son like him. Not just like him. Boys without closets, irredeemable faggots, find themselves constructing new identities since they can never be men, or so they think. But this isn't true. No man, no group of men governs manhood. No particular type of man is more man than another, not unless certain men, especially effeminate ones, excuse themselves from the pool of possibilities, and often that is precisely what happens. They forfeit manhood to those considered socially masculine. They yield to the belief that manhood rests most securely upon males considered performatively virile. How do I know this? Because uncloseted queer men seldom present themselves before the people as cultural examples of manhood that boys should follow. They usually submit to being deviants, social irregulars who have no place in the pantheon of men. This surrender is logical. Effeminate boys don't grow into men the way the culture desires, so most never travel the long, hard road to personal agency whereby they dare present themselves as precisely what a boy ought to be. They conclude subconsciously, I believe, that real men are masculine while sissies are queers in recovery. Yet sissies are men too. Wonderful, beautiful, flawed, talented, arrogant, strong, sensitive men like all the other men whom we should hope our boys become. Once they realize this, they'll stop apologizing for their difference and stop hoping for a closet. People suffer and die in there. The funny thing, as we pray against gay and lesbian children, they just keep coming. And they're going to keep coming. And the truth is we want them to keep coming because we won't get another Baldwin without them. We will not get so many of the ancestors who fought for us and changed our lives, who gave to us, who believed in us while we had absolutely no hope for them at all. But the secret they knew is you never ask for a savior. God simply sends them. Thank you. Somebody keep me on time. Somebody. Okay. I wrote this book for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons I wrote this, I grew up in the church. In fact, not just grew up in the church, I was a church musician. I started playing for a church when I was 6 years old. I started taking piano lessons at 3, and I sat on phone books because I was about that tall then, right? But I could already play, and I started playing, and being the musician, I had to be at church every time the church was open. Right, and I learned so many things by being in that institution, and saw so many wonderful things, but saw so many horrific things too. And I wrote this book because I'm afraid if we're not careful, we're going to throw that institution away. I'm afraid if we're not careful, black churches are going to close. And one of the reasons black churches are going to close is because we're not raising children in the church anymore. Right? So we go to church now, and 80% of your people are over 60. Oh, wait a minute, I know you. Right? But that's a deep thing, because what that means is in the next 20, 30 years, right, what in the world is going to happen? And it's profound, y'all, because even if we start here, the very building itself, most black communities physically own the churches in which they worship. What will happen to this property? Right? And if some of you know black history the way I know black history, when black people abandon things, somebody else gets it. Y'all know how this goes. I'm just trying to warn us of this before we get there, right? But I'm also wondering, where will black people gather if the church closes? And what will become of a people who, from the time we stepped off the boats, Reggie, right, in this place called America, from the time we literally transitioned from the Middle Passage, our healing, our strength was when we were able to physically gather. Right? Black people have been able over the years to put $2 or $3 here and there and build churches, build schools. HBCUs were built by same people who went there, but not by rich people. Right? Many of them were literally built by the students who were there, and people gave $10 and $15. And now we have these great institutions called HBCUs, right? And there are no mortgages. But this is profound to me, because I'm wondering what is going to happen to a people for whom community is our salvation if we stop communing. And I'm afraid we're beginning to see this. I think the pandemic even gave us a glimpse, right? Because if you've noticed, and I'm sure you have, the mental health has deteriorated in America in general, and in the black community too, in the last couple of years, right? Mental health is real fragile now. But some of this is because to be disconnected, right? To be unplugged from a spiritual source, from a place where you come and get your nourishment, it's going to absolutely destroy a spirit. And that's what's happened. But if we end up in a place where we have no place to go at all, it's going to be bad for us. It's going to really be bad. But at the same time, we got to overhaul the theology of the church. We have got to overhaul this theology. Now, why is this so difficult? Why is it so difficult? Because we as black people have never been given permission to question God. So really, it's almost blasphemous what I'm saying, right? You know, even when I read this section, and I've read this before, the minute I say Jesus could get a closet, people go, oh my God. Right? As if I've said a bad word, you know. Because God, church, is untouchable for us, which is why we cannot seem to do any better, because it's like, I vote that we redact certain parts of the Bible. I vote that some pages we just tear out. Do you see how funny that is to you? I literally vote for that. But there are folks who are like, oh, you can't do that. And why can't we? Because you can't, can you do that? Ma'am, can you?
It's already been done.
It's too many versions. Yes, it has been done, but not by you. That's the secret right there. Right? That thing's been translated. It has been so many times, but not by you. That's the secret right there. That everybody has had the authority to speak for God, to rewrite God, to quote God, to say what God said, except those of us brought here in chains. And what I'm suggesting is it's our turn now. It's our turn to say, all right, a new book. This is what God said to me, right? New scripture, right? And of course, we all know there are scriptures. Most of them are ancient. God ain't got nothing new to say. No? I mean, God is God, right? God is all-knowing, all things. God don't have nothing new to say. AIDS done come and gone. A pandemic has come and gone. God don't have nothing to say about this. Come on now. Come on now. So what I'm saying here is, it's a tricky thing. Who has the authority to write a new Bible? Who in the world could believe they have the authority? You understand what I'm asking, Malcolm? Right. To actually sit down and say, this is the word of God, right, for this age. Somebody's got to do it. Do you think that's a good idea? Do y'all think it's? Yes. You're like, well, maybe. I think that's a magnificent idea. Do you think it's a good idea? Say it again. Who in the world would it be? Who could do that? What do y'all think?
You can do it. You can do it.
I'm so glad you said that. Because I'm about 200 pages into it already. Yeah, I am. It's really, 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 it's the hardest thing I've ever written ever. All my books combined. It's the hardest thing I've ever written ever. But I get it. Because I cannot say what I think. It has to truly be what God thinks. So getting myself out of the way it proves difficult. Sometimes I write 4 or 5 hours and have one sentence. Right? But it's bad, baby. I'm in the book of Tyrone right now. Right? Absolutely. Because surely if you're going to speak for God, God is going to speak to you in the terms and names of the people you know. Right? What sense would it make to go to Africa and they have a scripture, right? And it's the book of James. Ain't no James in West Africa. Yeah, yes, huh? Am I talking good? Right? No. So, the world I know, right? There's a book of Tyrone in this book. There's Song of Shaniqua. The Song of Shaniqua. There's the Leroy's Lament. There is the book of the beginning. There's the book of Saviors. There's the book of African Proverbs. I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to see God in it. Absolutely. And the truth of the matter is, it's in some ways, it's the real culmination of what we've been doing in this country, and that is inching towards freedom. I think the freest thing in the world a person can do is believe that God looks just like you. I think that's the freest thing a person can do on the planet. I think that's why they killed Malcolm. We can talk about, I think they killed Malcolm because I really believe Malcolm was probably the most self-loving individual certainly I've ever read about or encountered. Because Malcolm got to the place where what Malcolm X said ultimately was one thing, and that is, whatever you tell me God said, if God didn't already tell me, you're wrong. First of all, why would God tell you to tell me? I know language. I can hear. You ever have people come to you and say, well, God told me to tell. No, God told you to tell you. That prophecy's for you. The one that's for me, God will tell me. Right? So yes, I'm definitely working on that. Some of you who've read Don't Cry for Me, what's going to come out first is the son's response is now done and finished. Right? So what the son says back to the father after reading the letters, it's going to kill you. Oh God, it killed me. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
You're from Black Arkansas. Is the book about you or is it just a fictional character here?
The book is about Jacob and Isaac.
Okay, Jacob and Isaac.
Yes, and their grandfather, Abraham. That's who the book is about. Yes. No, the question is, I understand what you're asking. I don't ever intentionally write about me, right? But I'm sure some of me seeps in, right, in terms of details. But never, like, I've not done an autobiography yet. Maybe one day I will. But in my head, people ask me if Perfect Peace was me, right, which is the funniest thing. In fact, people come to me and say, "Oh." I'm like, "Oh, what?" I just don't even know how you endured that. What are you talking about? And they go, "I get it." It's the funniest thing. But no, I never think of my characters as me, right? No, go right ahead, please.
But for those prophecies, I think every father's son should actually read them.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Because
Yes,
there's
ma'am.
so many powerful sentences.
Yes, ma'am.
A relationship that you can put together.
Yes,
That
yes.
When we talk about redoing the Bible,
Absolutely.
it's like me. Those words resonate in that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it would bring tears to your eyes if I could share with you some of the just hundreds of letters and notes that I've gotten from fathers who read Don't Cry. One man called me actually on the phone. I've never, ever talked to this man ever. And he was driving, and he said, "Is this Dr. Black?" I said, "It is." He said, "My name is so-and-so and so-and-so. And I just have to tell you, man, I finished your book last night, Don't Cry for Me." And I said, "Oh, brother, thank you for reading." He said, "No, I'm driving because I haven't seen my son in 18 years. And I'm on my way right now to go get him." Right? And I was like, "Oh, God." He said, "We fell out because he told me he was gay and all this, and I told him not in my goddamn house." And da-da. He said, "I'm going to find my boy." Right? Just unbelievable stories like this, right? And sometimes the issue is not even sexuality; it's just a breach, right? Because nurturing has been tough for black men over the years. Nurturing has been a beast for black men to do. And the truth of the matter is, in many instances, folk didn't even expect men to do it. Right? We don't really get these daddies who kiss you and all of this until we get to the 70s, really, right? If some of you understand, I'm 50, so, the daddies and grandfathers I had, these people paid bills, they went to work, and they did that excellently, right? But if you fell down and was hurt, it was gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. They told you, "Oh boy, get up," right? Yeah. You a boy, which was supposed to heal, I guess, all your wounds, But that's how they did manhood. That's how they did masculinity. And the thing that's tricky is that's the way women wanted men. See, it's layered. That's right. That's right. Because most of those men were not single. Most of those men were in relationships with people, right? Which taught sons, oh, this is what women are attracted to. Right, which is a very, very dangerous thing, and it has landed us here, and that is with an entire community of people who worship their mothers, right, and cross their fingers on their fathers. That's a huge problem, I think, but we are there. We absolutely, positively are there. I talk also about HBCUs, of course, in this book. Are any of you HBCU graduates? Yes, where? Shout it out to me. Miles, boo. CAU. ITC. Clark, CAU.
West Virginia State College.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, West Virginia. Yes, ma'am, absolutely. In fact, did Katherine Johnson go there?
Yeah.
I think she went there. Y'all know who Katherine Johnson is.
She was married, that's to take over, but she was married to a slave master.
Yes, yes.
And when they inherited she inherited the property, 5 wills. And she inherited the property. Her kids make that a colored institute. That's why it's called institute.
Institute, yes.
And
yes.
they get it. So that college has been there for years.
Yes, yes. In fact, what's so wonderful about West Virginia State, and of course you all know the story of Katherine Johnson from Hidden Figures. What's so profound though is, and they didn't tell it at all, of course, we know the story of Katherine Johnson, but of course, in the basement, remember there are all these black women, right? This was the 50s, this was the early 60s. What they should have done, I think, in this movie is to tell the audience that Katherine Johnson and every single one of those black women were black college graduates.
Yes.
Every single one of them. And I had students who asked, of course, they're young, well, Dr. Black, how do you know? Because white schools wasn't taking us yet. Right? But this is what's profound. Katherine Johnson is doing analytical geometry at the highest level, such that she's working for NASA. And in fact, the men in NASA are actually taking credit for Katherine Johnson's figures, right? Y'all, of course, saw the movie. But the thing that's really profound to me is most people don't know black schools weren't really teaching that level math yet. Katherine Johnson didn't have a PhD. She had just graduated from undergrad. Who in the world is teaching that level analytical geometry at a black college? Right? And so what I'm really saying is, and what I start talking about in this book, black schools have what I call the curriculum and the silent curriculum. The silent curriculum is the classes that are taught at black colleges that's not really a class, right? That you don't get any credit for, it's not on your transcript, but you know the information because your professor taught it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Right, I teach at Clark Atlanta. I do this all the time, every semester. There are classes I teach all the time. Students all in my class and none of them on the roll. Oh, it happens all the time. Because black schools were maroon spaces for black people. These were places where black young people could retreat, right, and gather knowledge, whether they had the money or not, right? And when I was an undergrad at Clark, I was an English major, and I wanted to do what I was at the time calling diasporic literature. I wanted to read Caribbean literature, African literature, and African American literature. We had a class called African American literature. So my professor, I said, I would love to read some Caribbean literature and some African. She said, well, we don't teach that here. And I said, yeah, but I want to do comparative literature when I go to grad school. So, and she said, listen, let me tell you what you do. I know Caribbean literature because that just happened to be one of my areas in graduate school. If you'll meet me at my house on Saturday morning, right, and read these books, I'll walk you through this. In exchange, I just want you to babysit my son sometimes. I said, deal. No problem. And this is really a true story. I went to her house she gave me a stack of books like this. I went to her house every Saturday morning. I'm reading Jamaica Kincaid. I'm reading Edgar Mittelholzer, right? I'm reading Camara Lay. The list goes on and on and on. And I applied, a year later, I applied to graduate school into this program called, they were given a PhD in African American Studies for the first time ever. And there were 500 and some graduates. They accepted 20 people. One of the reasons, Malefi Asante was the chair, that they accepted me was because they said I had taken classes in African literature, African American literature, Caribbean literature, etc. So I got this interview and they said, we don't see the Caribbean literature classes on your transcript. I said, oh, it's not there. They said, well, you claimed that you took these classes. I did. I did take them. And in fact, ask me anything. This is what I told them. I said, ask me anything. Ask me about any Caribbean writer. Ask me. And they're like, well, wait a minute. This is a little strange because it's not on the trans. I said, I understand that. Yes. My school didn't offer it officially, yes, but my teacher taught it to me. Yes. And if you let me show you, right, if you let me show you, I know this literature. This admissions council was Malefi Asante, Sonia Sanchez, Bobby Seale. These are all the teachers I had in graduate school. So they start asking me questions. This is really true. They say, okay, well, talk to us about Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Oh, got it. No problem. Let's do it. Talking about Chinua Achebe. No problem. No problem. And I was laying this out, right? So of course, at the end of this, they were like, scholarship. Right? Because I knew it, right? And I'm saying all of that simply to say that black schools are magical, magical, magical places, right? They're really magical places. But we gotta be committed to keeping them, because what's happening now is black schools are so expensive that we're really pricing black kids out. See, you can go to Georgia State for $4,000 or $5,000. But if you go to Clark Atlanta, it's gonna cost you $50,000 a semester. Right? It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough. But it's worth it if we'll keep a black curriculum that the other schools are not teaching. See, what I'm arguing is, if you take the same classes at Clark that you're gonna take at Georgia State, take it for $5,000. Right? I'm trying to, under great duress, get schools like Clark and other places. If you're a music major, right? If you're a music major at Clark, your classes should be Seminar in the Works of John Coltrane. Right? Your class should be The Ring Shout 101. Your class should be Black Church Music 212. Your class should be Sarah Vaughan 418. Your class should be Kendrick Lamar and the hip hop movement. Right? These are the classes a music major should take if you're at a black school. At Georgia State, they're going to teach you the Baroque period. That's fine. I'm not mad at Georgia State for that. I'm mad at Clark for that. Right? We've got to be bold enough to prioritize our own knowledge and our own information, regardless of what the world says. Now, people say, well, you know, the accreditation boards are not going to go for it. The problem is not the accreditation boards. The accreditation boards, they don't care whatsoever what you teach. What they want to know simply is, do you have the credentials to teach it?
Yes.
That's what they want to know. What we have to do as black people is get over this notion of who's going to hire you.
Yes.
We got to stop that. Nobody's going to hire you. You're going to make a job.
Amen.
You're going to open a business. You don't go to college, right, and come out asking, will somebody hire me? You go to college and you come out saying, what is the world missing?
Yes.
And then you do that thing and let the world pay you for it.
Amen.
Am I talking good to somebody?
Yeah.
Right? That's what college is for. That's what college is for. You don't come out of college hoping that Target will hire you. That's for people who didn't go.
Yes.
Am I talking? Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
You might have to cut this, you know. But yeah. Oh, ma'am, I'm just getting wound up. Good. No, that's. Nah, I said yes, ma'am.
So like maybe one or two more questions.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay, come. Questions, anybody? Yes, ma'am.
What's the title of your remake of the Bible?
You know, I'm really struggling with that. Right now, I'm calling it The Good Book. The Good Book. Yeah, if you got another title, give it to me.
No.
Yeah, right now I'm just calling it The Good Book. But some will come to me, or either it's gonna be The Good Book. Yes, sir.
I'm from Birmingham, Alabama.
Yes, sir.
Bedrock was one of the bedrocks of the civil rights movement.
Absolutely.
Black church was the place that everybody met, organized, went out.
Absolutely.
Miles College is one of those.
Oh, absolutely.
What advice could you give this generation? I'm 43.
Yes, sir.
My generation is younger to help reconcile. There's so much happening right now. I feel like everybody's all over the place hitting this. Anger,
Yes.
a lot of reaction.
Yes.
It's being taken wrong, and
Yes.
it's not making progress.
Yes.
It's stagnant. So what do you recommend to people my age, younger, as to explain the place of the black church
Yes.
and recreate institutions where we can kind of do that and recreate that energy?
Yes, sir. I would say two things. One of those is, I don't care how insane the world gets, self-knowledge never goes out of style. Right? So you've got to start with knowledge of self. I'm one who argues that the condition of black kids today is because they don't know how expensive their life was. They don't know the price that was paid. And the way I figured this out, brother, is I wrote a book called The Coming, right? And students read it at Clark Atlanta, right? And it never, ever, ever fails. It never fails. Students come up to me and say, Dr. Black, oh my God. Dr. Black, oh God. And I'm like, you've never heard of the Middle Passage? There are kids who told me, I've never heard of it. And there are even kids who ask me, did this really happen?
Yes.
And I'm like, what the hell? I mean, the question, you know what I'm saying? The question is so problematic. Like are we about to call this mythology? You know, and what I realize is that public schools and black people, we have saved and spared our kids from the truth, but we ruined them in doing it. We have to stop that immediately. We wanted kids who were unencumbered by racism. We wanted kids who didn't have to carry the weight. You got to carry it like we carried it. If you black, it's your inheritance. Put this weight on your back and let's go. Because without it, we become people, right, who are wandering in the wilderness with no direction, right? So I have gotten clear, right, that black kids have got to know, and white kids too, quite frankly, right? But since schools are not going to do it, and we see that, we're already there, right? We're going to do it ourselves. So the second thing I was going to say is we've got to open, as you were saying, we got to open some institutions, which means your basement on Saturday morning for the kids in the neighborhood, and we're going to do Black History from 9 to 12 in your basement. See, it's got to be that literal. It can't be prayer. Don't do the praying. We can stop that. Right? We can stop that. Right? We keep praying and God ain't coming. And why isn't God coming? Because anything humanly possible, God won't do. If it's humanly possible, God will not do it. You can beg and pray, God will not do it. Because it insults God for us to ask God to do what God has already given you the power to do. So that's not going to happen. So what we have to do is literally say, hey, listen, I know your son plays with my son, right? On Saturday morning, do you mind, right, if your kids come, right? We're gonna be right here in this room, right? And we're gonna teach this, right? And there are those of us who do this, right? And the difference is night and day. My niece and nephew here, right, they're grown people now, but when they were 5, 7, 9, every time we'd gather, I'd say, pencil and paper, let's go. And they'd be like, oh my gosh. Isn't this called the summer? Get this pencil, let's get it. Get this pencil and paper. Oh my God. We're gonna do the Harlem Renaissance today. We're gonna do the Middle Passage today. We're gonna talk. But the thing that's beautiful about it is when they got ready to graduate high school and go to college, nobody could turn around and tell them, African people migrated to America. Wait a minute, excuse me. No. Oh, no. That's not what my uncle said. Right, and that's what you want, because we're living in a system, right, that will tell our children absolutely anything conceivable, right, in order for us not to end up, quote unquote, radical. But we need all the radicalism we can possibly get, right? I know my time is up. I know it's up. God, Black at Clark. But okay, it's fine, ma'am. That's right. Yes, it's fine.
You got me so excited here.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm telling you, I thought I was having a church service up in there. But if you ever get a chance, go to West Virginia State. It's called West Virginia State University.
That's right.
Go down there. They got, I can't think her name now. Miss Johnson. They got a statue of her. They put a statue and I used to talk to this lady about a little girl.
Yes.
Didn't know she was famous.
Right.
She never walked around like I'm bougie.
Right.
Lady got so much knowledge. And when I watched Hidden Figures, I was like, wow, this lady has been famous all these years. Never walked around and said, I'm bougie, I'm this, I'm that. But they got her statue down there.
Yes.
You get a chance to go to West Virginia Institute. It's outside Huntington.
Yes. And the truth of the matter is every black college has this kind of inheritance, has this kind of legacy. Every black college created top-notch scholars, right? You can't get a W.B. Du Bois without a Fisk. You can't get a Martin Luther King without Morehouse. You can't get a Marva Collins without Clark Atlanta University, right? At the risk of arrogance, you can't get a Daniel Black without Clark Atlanta University, right? The list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And so let me just say, I think you'll have a fun, and maybe a little troubling time reading Black on Black. So after grab a copy for a young person, and I'm gonna sit here and sign books until we sign all the books we need to sign. And if folks want to take pictures, I'll do whatever it is we want to do. So thank y'all for having me. Thank you. Absolutely. Are we raffling one of my books?
Not one of your books, something else.
Okay, good. No.
But I wanted to tell you all thank you so much for coming. We have this here that shows our upcoming program. We
Ah.
have more wonderful authors coming up. We'll see if it works. More authors coming up, so please, get with us. We also have the Friends of the Library. We're trying to get new blood, and so we're offering, they're raffling off, not raffling, but there's a silent auction there, so you can win that gift basket there.
I
There's
see some wine in it. That's
there's-
good.
Yes. So please support that. We've got still have some red velvet, some coffee, and now we'll have the bag, the gift bag.
Okay. We're gonna do the gift bag first.
Let's see, we gotta,
Okay. Shamanimini. It's got to be people who are old enough to drink wine.
That's separate now.
Oh, okay. This for the gift bag?
No, this
This is that bag. Oh, this is that bag. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Beverly Bell. Congratulations.
Yay! Yay!
So please, if you haven't already purchased your book from Eagle Eye, please do so, and then we'll be able to come around and get your book signed. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One picture.